You know her, you love her. She
Oh,
is
everyone
the
knows
guru of all gurus, and I guess she is. She is the. Somebody was saying the other day that you're the mama bear of the progressive left. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is the mama bear with the
I'm the
progressive
mama
left.
bear?
Yeah, no,
I
no.
don't think
It's
so.
this lady right here, Marianne Williamson. Welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to Generational Change.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk to you guys. Thank you.
No, it's great. And, we really feel like we're getting a good preview. For people who don't know, Marianne is a keynote speaker. Which one is that? The one in New York?
DC.
Oh, DC.
No,
DC.
DC.
Sorry.
We'll say it now. It was a scheduling conflict. We wanted to have a surprise guest of Susan Sarandon, but unfortunately, it did not work out. But she's going to be one of the keynotes, one of the main speakers, not the keynote, but one of the main speakers in New York City. So this thing is really, taking off, and usually it comes together kind of late in the game. But at this point, it looks like DC is going to be a pretty big deal. I think, from what we see, it looks like you're going to get a pretty big crowd. Are you anticipating as much?
I don't know. I don't have any idea, but I really loved what you said a few minutes ago about the idea of regularity, the idea of these rallies continuing to take place and building the energy that way. I hadn't heard anyone say that, and I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, we think that in terms of all campaigns. Well, no, but the truth is that's something that we've done since our campaign. That's what this came from. This is an outgrowth, this show, all of the stuff we do from that is keeping the campaign going. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is they only campaign during campaign season or when it's legislative session or whatever it is. And I think these need to be ongoing, constant discussions and need to be in their face all the time. Clearly, we need to be in their face all the time.
I agree with you.
Can you talk about the importance of not waiting around for people on Capitol Hill? Because I know that there was obviously a very hard push, especially with Force the Vote, to try to get, some of the non-corporate representatives on the Hill to do something. And unfortunately, they're not doing anything. And, you can sit around and keep begging for them to do something. Instead, you got to make them respond to you, not the other way around. You got to get in the streets because I think the inside-outside strategy is the only way it's going to work.
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, it is clear the level of institutional resistance within our government to any kind of non-corporate healthcare. There is a corporate aristocracy, not only in relation to healthcare, in relation to the climate, in relation to foreign policy, in relationship to guns, in relationships to food, in relationship really to everything. And the idea, of course, is that corporations rule. And whatever the short-term profit maximization potential is for huge multinational corporations, that is the bottom line. Then within that, you guys can have whatever you want. And that's really what Obamacare was, wasn't it? It was a health insurance company saying to Obama, we'll let you go this far. And now we've come to understand, but particularly in this session, particularly given that Force the Vote did not work and so forth, that the idea of truly challenging the primacy of health insurance companies and big pharmaceutical companies when it comes to healthcare in the United States, they have a lock. And you guys were talking about the Chantel Brown, Nina Turner race in Ohio. It's a proxy war, isn't it? Yeah. It's a proxy war between the corporate Democrats and genuine progressives. So then the second thing you said was, okay, so we have to take it to the streets. The problem is that we have to talk about the problem we have with that. The Black Lives Matter protests were the biggest in American history and caused very little legislative change. So at this point, we say it's outside and it's inside, and it's a little bit more than that too. It's some awakening in the American people that our government is now such a system of legalized bribery, that the big insurance companies, that the big pharmaceutical companies, and I think what happened with COVID on so many levels is we really saw that the system is okay with watching people drop dead. It would rather watch people drop dead than change. That's a serious problem. And I think what's happening, what you're part of and what so many people are part of, is an awakening on the part of the American people. So we have to do all of it. It's all of the above. It's inside, it's outside. It's taking to the streets, and it's running for office, and it's doing podcasts, and it's refusing to shut up. It's all of the things that we're talking about. And I'm with you guys. Just keep it up, a wall of sound, and a wall of activism.
We just had on Dr. Victoria Dooley, who was Bernie's primary surrogate for Medicare for All. heard you talk multiple times about your experience as a presidential candidate and the resistance. That's such a word that they chose to use. It's
The
amazing.
resistance.
Yeah. The resistance to your message, in particular, the non-corporate message. If you could talk a little bit about what it was like, particularly when it came to the issue of Medicare for all and the type of things that were being kind of discussed in political circles. I mean, we all saw what Mayor Pete did in Iowa, but it was much more than that. This is a systemic problem within the infrastructure of the party, and that is something that we're trying to change.
Well, good luck with that. I wasn't talking about Medicare. I wasn't actually talking about Medicare for all at that time. I still thought during my campaign that a public option, that we could have a bridge across. So actually Medicare for all is the one thing which is a fundamental difference for me between what I'm saying now and what I said on my campaign, because I've been convinced since that it's the only way to go, and that there is no way to make an adequate transition otherwise. But my message was certainly non-corporate on everything else. And of course, I felt that my message was non-corporate then in terms of corporate dominance, but I understand now how that works a little bit. It's not like I didn't understand how it works before. I just understand now it's too little, too late. And I think that that's what's happening. I think that if you look at healthcare, if you look at so many issues, what Biden is doing, what the Democrats are trying to do now, some of the directions they're taking are good. But my fear is that it's too little, too slow, and too late. So certainly when I was running, I saw that there is, and once again, go back to the Nina Turner race, go back to what's happening there. There's a certain establishment elite, for want of better expression, that has determined what a Democrat should be and how a Democrat should think and what a Democrat should stand for. It's very ironic, isn't it? You know, the Republicans have the very elitist policies, but in a weird way, almost a more egalitarian relationship to their own constituency. The Democrats, for the most part, stand for more egalitarian policies, but have the more elitist relationship with their own constituency. And the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which is historically so significant, is being treated like we're a bunch of unruly kids who just need to shut up and sit down and let the grown-ups handle this because they've got it. You know, we've got this, which is so ridiculous. The planet is literally burning up. You know, the people are literally dying from various things such as unnecessary health concerns and the wealth inequality and everything else. So the idea that they're saying we've got this is so absurd. What I learned as a candidate, what Nina is seeing, what Bernie saw, what so many see, is that they're very serious about this. And if you do not toe the line, they will do whatever it takes to get you off stage. They would prefer not to shoot you now. There are different kinds of character assassination. In my case, it was, you know, she's a joke, she's woo-woo, she's kooky, she's anti-science, she's whatever. They'll say and do whatever they feel they need to say and do in order to get you out. And they're very serious. I mean, what's happening, once again, going back to Ohio, what's happening there is unheard of, that such establishment power is entering into a special primary congressional election. They're very serious. They do not want Nina there. And that's why it's so important. I think it's important, as you do, that we recognize the relationship between a Medicare for All rally and the Nina Turner race in Ohio 11. It's all part of the same proxy contest between what is the high end. Are the Democrats better than the Republicans? Yes, we understand that they're better than the Republicans, but that's like saying, do you want to die or do you just want to have a long chronic illness that lasts for decades?
Right.
So that's not good enough. And we're trying to hold the line for an entire progressive, non-corporate based vision of America and American democracy.
I think that one of the things one of the things that always speaks to me the most about you, and that I loved that you ran for president, is that you're the only person, I think, that when you speak, I feel like you understand the nature of the collective. And I've said this before, and I don't think that people really understand that. And it's very important for people to understand that what happens over here affects what happens over there. And what happens to one person affects another person. And a lot of people don't like that. And then we find ourselves going into the whole economics argument of Medicare for all, because clearly morality isn't enough to just sway people to that side. So we go into the economics of it. But you are the only person that I found was really speaking as to, you say it's like love. And I think it is love-based, but it's really this recognition that what hurts you hurts me, and like really understanding that. And it's very hard to get that across to people. And I think that, to me, when you start talking like that, which speaks the most to me, that's when people are like, oh, she's like hippie or new age or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, but even if that's true, yes, please. Yeah, like that's what we are. I mean, how did you feel like when you were the only person speaking that way?
Well, this is the thing, Jen. That was just fairy dust thrown in people's eyes. That's all that was. People say, too bad they didn't take you seriously. There's a way in which they took me very seriously. That's why they were so serious about making me appear ridiculous.
Yeah.
When I was the most Googled person in 49 states after the second debate, and somebody says, get that woman off the stage.
Oh, yeah.
So what really matters is the will of the people. It's not just what I talked about, or even what you just talked about, or anyone else speaking and articulating the progressive vision. 70% of Americans want Medicare for all. A thin majority of Republicans want Medicare for all. People are not stupid. People are drowning in medical debt. We have medical bankruptcies. We have people who cannot afford their insulin. We have people who are working at jobs that they hate for no other reason than that it's the only way that they can get medical insurance. The level of suffering, the level of stress, the level of anxiety, then we say we have a mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis because they're driving everybody crazy. There's this huge disintegration of the fabric of our civilization. If people want to talk about that like it's a joke, let them talk about it like it's a joke. The majority of people actually know that it's not a joke. And this is something else that's interesting. Who, and the irony of all ironies, what group of people know that talking about the larger cultural issues involved is not a joke? Republicans.
Yeah. They do it well.
Not only, the fact that Democrats, some Democrats, establishment Democrats, want to keep the conversation so transactional, I don't think is even a winning strategy in politics.
No.
So their fear of expanding, right? They're exactly what people get viscerally, even with what's happening now, even some of the good things that the Biden administration is doing, you can see that they're being delivered in a way that will not necessarily hit people on a visceral level. So it's just one more way in which telling someone, you don't talk about it the way we want you to talk about it. You're not saying what we want you to say. You're not working for the team of what they deem to be the team of the Democratic Party is devastating. And of course, once again, it's bigger than Nina's race. It's bigger than Medicare for all. And it really strikes at the heart of what's going to happen in 2022. And that strikes at the heart of what's going to happen in 24. So I'm just so glad people like you, people like me, so many of us we're going to continue saying what we believe, and an idea grows stronger. The more people are talking about it, the more people are willing to say it. That's another thing that the Republicans do, even to the point of it being a huge lie. They'll say it again.
Right. No, truth isn't
at least we're
issue.
trying to tell the truth here. But sometimes people on the left, certainly within the Democratic Party, will say, you didn't like it, so I won't say it again. Or I'll change my language. And it's really important, those of us, the two of you are perfect examples. I'm going to say it. And if you don't like it, I'm going to say it again. And if you still don't like it, I'll say it a little bit louder. And that's what we're doing with Medicare for all and with so many of these issues.
Yeah, I'm pretty shameless about it now. A long time ago, I don't know, maybe it was actually in the beginning of our campaign. I just decided I'm not even going to debate this with people anymore. It's sort of like debating flat earthers or creationists or whatever. And I just don't want to give that credence.
There's certain...
I'm done with that discussion. We need healthcare. It's not, we cannot be discussing this anymore. And so I feel like when you have a debate on that, you're giving a platform and giving credence to an archaic, completely wrong standpoint. And I don't want to do that.
It's a class issue. And it's definitely one where the two parties have done an excellent job, to their credit, because this is not a small country, to basically pit I would say 2 or 3 different types of class of people against each other. But the Democratic Party establishment firmly today is big city and suburbanites. And the Republican Party is basically all rural. and there is a big difference in terms of level of education and obviously in terms of class. The people in this country who make up a very significant portion of the Republican base now, they're just sold the fear-mongering stuff all day, every day. You don't want to talk to those people. They're going to take your rights away. They're going to take your guns away, your religion away, and all that. And they buy into that stuff. And then on the other side, with the Democratic Party, you basically have a party now that, in terms of who is right now pulling levers of power, are people whose class interests have nothing to do with people who need health care. And I think that is really where the dividing lines come into play. So I think this is a good segue, because a lot of people are really, there's a significant amount, I would say, that are very interested in the movement for a People's Party, or just a third party in general, something away from what the traditional movement has been. I think you have to have an inside-outside strategy, but I am curious as to how you feel about it, as far as, do we need to make a clean break at this point, or do you think that fighting inside the party and outside the party is necessary?
Well, I think the fact that you name the conundrum is important, and I think it's the conversation we need to be having. If you look at American history, third-party voices have been extremely important. Abolition came from the Abolitionist Party. Women's suffrage came from the Women's Party. I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that Social Security came from the Socialist Party. And it was back in the 1960s, and with the ascension of the popularity of George Wallace, that the Democratic and the Republican parties formed a deeply unholy alliance against the power of third parties. And to be honest, even H.R. 1, it's not good. It's not good for third-party voices. No. So we're all living with this in our hearts. We know that if it hadn't been for the Jill Stein vote, we wouldn't have gotten Donald Trump. So that's the part of your mind that goes, we can't afford to do that. And then the other part of your mind says, well, what are we going to do? So where are progressives supposed to go? Our natural home is within the Democratic Party. Certainly when I grew up, it was. And yet you've got the greatest powers within the Democratic Party. I mean, what they're doing to Nina is such a perfect example. So when you ask me, my answer is, there's one of my favorite books is Letters to a Young Poet by Marianne Williamson. And he says, sometimes when a question is very difficult and you don't have the answer, just live with the question. I don't know you, Jen, if you're going to run again. I don't know if you're going to run.
I like that answer. That's, I feel like that about things. You don't always know. And sometimes you have to live in uncertainty, and you have to just accept it for what it is.
Right. And that's how I feel about this. It's like, this is all, I think I can feel how many of us are living with that question. And every time they do something like what they're doing in Ohio 11, makes you think, why are they work so hard to these Republicans and so hard to throw us out the back door?
When you talk about like how you're a Democrat and I'm a Democrat, I mean, it was never an option, really. I mean, I would have never been anything else. But I still feel like, and certainly when you became a Democrat, there was still a labor element involved in the party. They were still somewhat of affiliated as a labor party. And now we don't have any labor party in this country. And that's the ultimate problem. And we talk about that regarding a third party all the time, that the only way a third party can truly be successful is to be a labor party and really represent working people. And that can't be on niche issues that alienate all the right and alienate the left. It needs to be working people. And we need to stop focusing on the divisive issues. And that's the problem. And the Democrats and Republicans love to stay focused on divisive issues because it's like this, it's political theater. And that's why the third party can't be too far to the left or too far to the right. It needs to be working people, or it won't be significant enough. I mean, that's just, so we really focus on labor with the Democratic Party, but this stuff that they're doing to Nina is par for the course. And it's interesting that more people don't see it for what it is. I mean, they literally are just hanging out this woman to avoid having Nina.
They better hope she doesn't win. That's all I can say.
Tell me, it's so interesting that you just said that, Peter, because I want to hear more why you feel that, because that's my sense as well.
Because I think she has balls, and I don't think AOC does. And I think it just comes down to that. I think she's been through way too much in her life. She is a Black woman.
No, wait. Now I'm confused. Who are you talking about now then?
He's talking about Nina.
I'm talking about Nina.
She thought you were talking about Chantel Brown, like why you would be, you thought he meant they should be worried if she wins.
No. They should be worried if Nina wins.
And that's why they're doing everything that they can. Yeah, 100%. And that's why they're doing everything they can. This is their Maginot Line. This is like, we let Corey get through, we let Jamal get through, we let AOC get through. We didn't take it seriously enough. We're going to take a stand.
I think this is another
a
level.
Whole other ball game.
Because, and a lot of this, like when you talk about AOC, or even quite honestly any of them, there is a maturity and a wisdom and a sort of been there, done that Nina has. And I think that is where like gumption and leadership really, because you could be on the right side of issues. I believe that Alex is on the right side of issues. I don't like people that are constantly nagging at them for every little thing. I think that they're on our team, but just because you're on the right side of issues doesn't mean that you have that leadership. I do think there's a certain maturity and wisdom that Nina has.
That's why they're scared of her.
And I think that it's valid. And I think that, she's not we have a troll that comes on. He's actually not here. I noticed that he's not here.
It's always,
but he always says, she'll bend the knee.
I always say thank you. The more you comment,
the
more
great.
People see the video. So that works for us.
But this guy's always like, Nina will bend the knee to Nancy Pelosi. I'm like, Nina doesn't bend the knee to anybody. I can tell you that.
I think Nina was playing it safe early on. But once she started seeing just how far they were willing to go to try to knock her off, now she's saying Medicare for all day, every day. That's all she
always has. This is the most ridiculous thing to say about her, that she doesn't support Medicare for all.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying as a campaigning candidate, you have to cover different issues. You have to meet your particular voting block where they are. And there is this, you don't want to make any missteps. But the way I just observed the way Nina's been running, it's one of those, I'm going to be me. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'm going to be me. And that is that.
Nina can't be anybody else.
Yeah. And I think it's very important that people recognize that even though, you want to tear down the Democratic Party, I do think if Nina is able to get in, that is a much more significto victory than people think. And that's part of the reason why
I think she's the catalyst. I think she's the one. I not to put too much pressure on one person, not to say that one person is all, because it's all of those people.
She's the heir apparent to Bernie's movement.
I just feel like she's the person, her personality is the person who can coalesce all the people that are there, that are on the right side, that are just not taking the stand and not, I just think she breathes fire into people. And I think that is what is needed because they're on the right team.
If the movement is to learn anything in terms of what's transpired in the last 5 years. And I also think one of the reasons why it's not likely that, Jen will run this upcoming election cycle is because I think there's a lot of electoral fatigue that people have experienced over the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much that has gone into this whole, this whole experience. But if anybody wants to actually have a non-corporate representative as our chief executive, that means Nina Turner in 2028.
Do you hear him?
You need to start preparing right now to do the things that are necessary in order to make sure that if a heir apparent to Bernie's movement has a second crack at this in 7 years, you better make sure that all of the mistakes that have been made in terms of who is in control of your local DEC, are you a precinct committee captain? Are you making sure that people are registered to vote that are fighting on the issues? Are you knocking on doors, not for necessarily the party, but for the policy? And if you're doing things like that, it could be a whole new ball game in the next several years. Yeah, it's a short game and it's a long game, but I really do think Nina could create that wake up call that I think just a lot of people are, just kind of, they're recharging their batteries right now. But I think if Nina wins, I think that's going to get people fired up again.
Well, I think you're right. And not just that people will get fired up if she wins. They're going to be fired up behind Nina. That's another thing they don't know. If they are able to defeat Nina, it's only going to increase her power. It's only going to increase that fire in many ways because it will make so many people so aware of what happened there and how they defeated her, if in fact they defeat her, the dark money that was brought in and so forth. But whether she wins the congressional election or doesn't, she needs to be the leader. explaining to people of the next thing that you said. And that is her electoral experience, her knowing on the level of the precincts. Look what happened in Nevada, for instance.
Yeah.
And this is how the far right gained so much power. The Tea Party and so forth gained so much power among the Republicans. We need more Democrats to understand you have to get involved on the precinct level. You have to get involved on the local level. You have to get involved on the state level. My concern, of course, is how much resistance certain people will feel even on those levels, which takes us back to the question of whether or not you just go third party. But I think ultimately you're right. If we can fire people up about getting involved on those levels, which is a revolution that I think Nina can lead, regardless of what happens in this election. But I'm still holding out. She's going to win, and we're going to see her in Washington. There's so much energy behind the desire to see her there for all the reasons that you guys have said.
Yeah, I think
for all the reasons that her enemies fear.
Yeah, well,
it'll be a huge morale boost, honestly, to the left that people haven't really felt, especially since Bernie in 2020. Like, I think that is sort of an inspiration. It would be an inspirational moment, quite honestly.
Yeah, this would be the
absolutely.
First, Cori Bush winning her race was absolutely huge, incredible, and from an infrastructural standpoint. But if Nina gets in, like I said, there was no one who had a bigger impact. There was no one who was more loyal to Bernie through thick and thin both times. And it clearly was not to her political advantage to do that. Anyone who thinks otherwise is just being foolish. She could have completely gone in a different direction, and she didn't. She's the genuine article. I've met a lot of people in this business, and it's not clean. But Nina's one of the, she's a rare air. There's no other way to describe it. And, we're taking no chances. We'll be in Cleveland for the last few days of the election. We'll be working.
Oh, good.
Day.
We have 8 people from Team Jen going up to help Nina.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to speak to that also. If you go to ninaturner.com, right? Or is it Nina for Congress? What is it? I think it's ninaturner.com, right? What Jen and Peter were just saying was so true. They need people. If you're in Cleveland, if you're in Ohio, if you're anywhere in the Midwest, or you can just get there. That old song, get there by car, get there by train, get there by plane, just get there. They need people to help canvassing. And also, no matter where you are, they need people to phone bank. So you can phone bank from wherever you are. And what you guys are saying is so true. We all need to show up in these next, I think it's 11 days left in this campaign. And
Cleveland's very accessible from a lot of major cities: Detroit, Pittsburgh, Louisville, even Chicago. I mean,
guys can get on the phone for her too. You can get on the phone for her.
It's again, don't leave anything to chance. And who knows what kind of, that's why, especially, and Marianne, you know this as well as anybody, especially on election day, they are going to pull every dirty trick out of the box. They are going to have people trying to sneak palm cards with Chantel Brown to vote for at the doors at 6 a.m. when they think people aren't looking. You got to have every base covered. You must, because they will stop at nothing. They understand that their power is very precarious. And I think this is a great segue into what we feel is the path for Medicare for all in the United States. And that is with the New York Health Act. I think it's the one that has the best chance of breaking through. We had State Senator Gustavo Rivera on the podcast on Monday to talk about the legislation. And I really believe it could very well be like a Canada situation. They passed it in Saskatchewan, then eventually it moved to every province. I think that's how it's going to happen here in the United States. We see, obviously, how much of a bureaucratic failure, unfortunately, California is in many ways. Washington State doesn't have, I think, enough in terms of population or momentum at this point, but I really think New York has a shot. I really do, and would love to hear your thoughts on that maybe it is going to take a statewide universal system to basically knock down that first domino, and then it's game on for the rest of the country.
Florida will be last.
We understand.
Well, that's actually how America is supposed to work. Alexander Hamilton said states are laboratories of reform. That's how it happened with marriage equality. That's how it happened with medical marijuana, legalization of drugs. It's that things start on the states, and sometimes in states that we don't expect, which happened actually in both those cases I mentioned. So not only do I think it's possible, it's kind of the way America is supposed to work. That you demonstrate, a state demonstrates, we did it, it worked. Another state goes, wow, they did it, it worked. Another state goes, wow, they did it, works. And then the energy revs up and the dominoes start to fall. And it once again, it's everything that you were talking about before. It's everything. Rallies, New York, electing people. It's all of the above. It's just doing everything that we possibly can on any level, local, state, federal, electoral, non-electoral rallies. This is the call of our generation to show up, to push back against the overreach of corporate forces that really would, I put on a tweet today, they're like a boa constrictor squeezing the life out of our democracy.
Speaking of tweets, if you can retweet this live stream that we have going right now, I think we sent a message to your box. If you can, if you have your phone handy.
Do you tweet, Marianne?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, I do. So what are you telling me to tweet?
I don't know how to tweet.
Tweet the link of the live stream. You should have something in your inbox for this live stream. That'll get even more people on the live stream right now. And I agree. And the irony, if they pass it in New York, is that who's going to get taxed the hardest to pay for the statewide system in New York is Wall Street. The irony of it being Wall Street that's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? New York of all places.
That's the irony of life. In a way, it's supposed to happen that way.
Would you please? I don't want to say on your show my personal email, but do you have my personal email?
I do.
Okay, would you send it to me, the link I'm supposed to put out?
Yeah, hold on.
Absolutely. Just send her the YouTube link. That'd be the best one. And I do think that
Here
is.
Put whatever you want to
now
put in
I
it.
have to put.
Well, I don't know what it is. I don't Twitter.
Okay.
I don't know how to Twitter.
You don't tweet.
I tweet. I have not been on social media in well over. I think I'm getting close to 5 months now. And it's been extremely cathartic for me. I just got to the point where, quite honestly,
I'll send it from you.
People are just too mean. I'm sorry, but they are. And I honestly don't need that kind of toxicity in my life. I just don't. I'm too old for that crap,
We're discovering
I just got something from Jen on my, okay, I think I get it. Medicare for All Summit.
That's
okay. It. Copy message. Put it on my Twitter. And put them now. Join us now, right?
Bingo.
Join us now. All right.
I must say, you have a real charm to you. You really do.
It's because she
what?
Well, you have a real charm to you. I don't know how to explain it.
He says you have a real charm to you. I'm like, because she's tried.
I don't know how to explain it. You're very, like, for the people that don't like you, the problem is them.
Who doesn't like Marianne?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
I don't ever understand any of these things. He tells me people don't like this person, people don't like that person. I'm like, I don't understand this. There's only very few people that I don't like.
Well, the other thing about politics that's always so interesting is that it seems to me that you're not allowed to be happy in politics. You have to be miserable all the time.
Well, that doesn't work.
I don't understand that. And I think that's one of the things that was so interesting about Andrew Yang was that he was just all positivity and be like, he's so positive. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
And
he smiled.
I don't know. I thought his positivity was very embraced and for good reason.
Yeah.
But also and I say this with great love. And I think that if he were here, he would agree with this. He's kookier than I am.
He's a little kooky. He's very nerdy.
And nobody went around saying, oh, he's kooky. I mean, I still haven't found that sort of, whatever. I don't want to go relitigate or go back, but yeah, I mean, I'm
sure.
I don't understand why people have a problem with him either. I don't understand why people have a problem. Like, you know what? It's very strange to me. He'll often tell me, oh, well, this person, they get a lot of hate and I'm like, why? Like, what?
Well,
like,
but
I don't understand that.
No, in my case, I do understand that if people allow themselves to be too easily duped, and I think that that's what was surprising to me, is how people who think that they're not duped so easily are duped so easily. But if you have, as I did, people saying, over and over the same talking points, she's dangerous, she's crazy, she's anti-vax, she's anti-science. I mean, I love that, we have a president who's a Catholic, whose creed is, a virgin gave birth and then Jesus, rose from the dead, but nobody's saying he's anti-science. She's kooky, she's nutty, she's, if you have somebody saying that about you all the time, over and over and over again, it starts to create this narrative. And, what I saw about that, and this goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago, that we just need to keep saying it. In my case, for instance, I look back at that and I wish that I'd fought back. I wish that I'd every day when one of those articles came out, gotten up there and said what the truth was, if whether it had to do with big pharma or whatever. And that was the lesson for me personally. And I think the lesson for all of us is just keep saying the truth as you see it. And I think when we run away from lies or think, well, I just won't speak to it, that's when I think lies take greater hold. But I understand the effect they have if there's not somebody.
So let me ask you, so why didn't you do that? Why didn't you? What do you think held you back?
Well, I was advised, and I now, by people who certainly meant well, don't speak to it because that brings attention to it. But on a presidential campaign, well, normally, yes, it is. But on a presidential campaign, obviously, the attention is there.
Right.
If I had to do it over again, I would have gotten on Facebook Live every single day. And also, when I was sort of ambushed by Anderson Cooper on the antidepressants issue and the big pharmaceutical issue, first of all, I was in shock. I wish that I had really spoken back. And why didn't I?
If you saw the interview he just gave with Jeff Bezos, are you really that shocked?
See, I don't watch mainstream media, so I don't see that.
That's my point.
Was he all over him like how wonderful?
I don't want to say anything inappropriate,
Could he not lick up his butt harder? Could he not get all the way up there?
It was really bad.
Maybe he needs a rocket-shaped microphone, shaped like a penis that can, do it.
Well, there was a dick in the sky that day.
Unbelievable. Could this man, and with that cowboy hat and the whole thing, could he be? He's like the guy in the Lorax. Did you see the Lorax, Marianne? You know what the
No, I didn't.
Okay,
actually.
So it's a Dr. Seuss book, and the Lorax, the premise is that this little man, this is the movie portion, basically owns the air. And there's no more trees. He got rid of all the trees, and he's bottled up air. So in order to breathe, he's the guy you have to buy the air from, and he owns all the air. And that's how I feel about Jeff Bezos. He's a very little man that is clearly overcompensating for a lot, and is just wants to own everything. And just completely tone deaf. Thanks the Amazon employees are you kidding? These are people that have to pee in bottles.
And then I don't understand. And then proceeds to give Van Jones $100 million. It's like life doesn't make sense anymore. There's no sense.
I think people have a hard time. When you're talking about the multi-billions that this man has, 100 million is not change. And no amount of private charity can compensate for a basic lack of social.
Okay, but I will say, Lauren, my understanding was that they have to give it to it has to be for their charity. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know.
No, he gave, but it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, he gave the money to Van Jones to distribute to charities. Definitely.
And the other person who got it is somebody who runs the World Food Bank. And actually, why am I miss Andres? What's his name? Oh my God, I'm losing my. He gave that to two different people, but it's for their.
But the point is, but hold on, let's go back a little bit. First of all, even 100 million to a Jeff Bezos with his over 100 billion is not anything that affects his day at all. When you look at his anti-union activity, when you look at his monopolistic activity, I think that there's a bigger issue here than just one man. It has to do with the entire mega capitalist class of multi-billionaires during the pandemic. Whether it has to do with Elon Musk, whether it has to do with Zuckerberg, whether it has to do with Bezos or any of them. We had a moment of such collective agony. And I, last year, think that I actually naively thought those guys were going to do something. I thought those guys, this is your chance. They could have gone to lunch. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg could have gone to lunch one day. Maybe invited Warren Buffett, and they could have said, you know what, there will be no hungry person in America during this pandemic.
Right?
Yeah. Even in Vietnam, they were dispensing rice for free from these machines on street corners. What they could have done, and what I realized that even in the most critical moments, I myself was surprised. I thought certainly these mega capitalists are going to say, for a year, we're going to put aside our normal business model just for a year while this is going on. And the fact that they made so clear that they would not do that said to me everything you need to know.
They capitalize so much on it. I mean, talk about disaster capitalism. I mean, Bezos.
So many more billions of dollars. It's
I
so
mean,
that
he
when
could end world hunger. He could end world hunger. And I've wondered this for a long time. Like, if I could end world hunger and I didn't do so, I wouldn't be sleeping. Like, I don't understand.
That's
Like,
right.
well, I wouldn't know,
That's right.
but I could never have that kind of money, because the only way to get that kind of money is to really lie, cheat, and steal.
I don't know. Well, that kind of money, perhaps.
Well, right. I mean, you have to be screwing your employees,
well,
screwing the
I'll give you a
environment,
good-
not paying taxes.
I'll give you a good example. You're in New York. Is that where you are?
I'm in DC.
DC. Okay. So just something as simple, as silly as this is, and of course Jen's going to hate me because it's sports reference, but James Dolan, who is, he's another Trump, he's another Donny Deutsch, he's another product of nepotism of the worst kind. Just inherited an astronomical amount of money from their parents, and has run Cablevision, for the past 4 decades, I guess. He hasn't paid any taxes on the Madison Square Garden entire property in Manhattan, in that part of Manhattan, for 3 decades.
Well, and that was one of the things Andrew Yang wanted to do, was to tax the garden.
And as soon as he said that, Dolan started.
That was the end.
He started funding Eric Adams out the yin yang, and it's like, it's so clear that they know that their position is very precarious, and they know that as soon as one domino falls, it's like the whole system could fall apart. And I think this brings the conversation in many ways full circle back to the marches and Nina
in Ohio 11 and Nina Turner,
and like, they can't allow somebody like that to get through, because then, let's say Nina is a sitting congresswoman in a very important swing state like Ohio, especially for the Democrats. I mean, that region is, Northeast Ohio is everything to the Democrats in that state. And so she'll be on CNN, she'll be on MSNBC, and her statement is going to be, we have to, support the people. We have to do what is necessary. And they're going to have a hard time, keeping
That's
that.
what I've. What I don't understand is why. Well, I do know why, but in a sane world, the Democratic Party would see her as such an asset. They should see her as an asset.
Oh, they're so scared of her.
You have seen a lot in this world, and I have no doubt that you have been to the type of parties that people have no idea exist and have no idea who roams in those rooms. But for the people whose average net worth is in the 8, 9, even 10-figure range, they really look down on society. They really believe that they are the masters of the universe and that everybody should basically grovel.
What was that meeting they just went to? Because I grew up with Sheryl Sandberg. And so every once in a while, and that's really my only connection to anything in the tech. Like, I don't know anybody or whatever, but I know Sheryl from BBYO. But from
I haven't heard that in a while. BBYO, like, oh my God.
It was B'nai B'rith Earl. But this is like, it's all tribe. So and I saw they had one of their big fancy Davos like meetings recently.
Well,
that was like a whole.
The Davos meeting is basically the collection of the richest.
This was something similar to that.
Yeah, well, this was no different than and they played this up in House of Cards. When in the election of '68. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but there was this place in Northern California, just outside San Francisco. It was up in like the Redwood region. And they're sitting at this table, and Reagan is sitting there, and Nixon is sitting there. And you could just tell that these are the people who basically make decisions for the world.
Well, okay, but the difference is some of those people, and not that I'm fans, were elected. And a lot of the people that are going to these things, like these tech meetings and these huge oligarchy sort of like board meetings where they all sort of decide how they're going to divvy up the planet, is that these people weren't elected. So that's the problem.
You're making a really important point. Jen is making a really
right.
important
I mean,
point.
that's the thing. It's not that I mind that there's people that are making decisions. It's just that they shouldn't be corporate oligarchs. I mean, that's
so many of the decisions that they're making now are who's going to get elected because of the undue influence. I don't think any socioeconomic group has a monopoly on morality or nobility. Not everybody who's rich is a greedy bastard. Not everybody who's poor is a saint. I think it's really important that we keep it on systems and how systems are operating. Because once we start demonizing individuals, and even when we call out and hold accountable someone like a Jeff Bezos, it's because of bigger issues than just the fact that that the spacecraft looked like a penis. You know,
oh yeah, no, we've allowed it. We've allowed it, and I was just explaining this to my son today that a good majority of a lot of the stuff he's doing is not illegal. Like what he's doing as far as his taxes and how he's doing and how he pays his employees, all that, we've created a system where he's within the law to do that. I mean, and that's really what the problem is, you know?
Well,
I
it's
mean,
legalized bribery. We
Yeah.
have legalized bribery in the United States. We have the undue influence of money on the system is such that many of the most nefarious things that people are doing are now legal.
Yeah.
And that's the leaked video of the Exxon lobbyist recently talking about how basically Exxon has bought and sold various Congress people and senators. He said, but hey, we're not doing anything illegal.
No. So that's the thing. And I kind of feel like to
They
some
wrote the laws
extent that's
on their
on
behalf.
us. That's on all of us. And it happened over, you know, how the past 40 years or, you know, however long it's really gotten really bad with the corporate takeover. And we've kind of allowed that out of a lot of complacency, a lot of ignorance, a lot of different things. And now we are where we are. And that's how, I mean, that's the problem.
And again, it gets back to Nina's race. You know, her opponent is literally going on national media and saying, give me super PAC money. It shows you that, hey, that's the system. I'll take whatever money I can get because it's about my interests and what I want.
I want to go back just I'm sorry.
Sure.
No, go.
I just want to reiterate, I just want to second what Jen just said and what both of you have been saying about how we need to take responsibility for the fact that we created so much of this. We were looking away. And one of the things that we've learned from all this is you cannot take your democracy for granted. A garden has to be tended. A relationship has to be tended. And we assumed that our democracy was okay and that some political class was handling it or whatever we thought, whatever was our justification. And too many years went by that we were looking the other way. And that's, you know, as the French say, you don't do politics, politics will do you. One of the things that, by the way, thank you for this comment. I made a donation for having MW on the show. That's so sweet.
Guy is one of our patrons. We don't have a lot, but we like our patrons. But I
that
do
is so sweet.
That.
Thank you.
Guy is he's
a
an
patron.
amazing supporter of Jen who lives close by. So you know.
That is so sweet. The point I was trying to make had to do with the fact that there is among the many people on the left this anti-electoralism that I think is very scary. The cynicism, it doesn't matter who wins, forget elections, which is very dangerous. Our quote unquote forgetting elections is so much how we got here. And we have to turn our attention to these elections as well as everything else. Once again, going back to Ohio 11.
Yeah.
Speaking of looking the other way, I hate to say it this way, but it's true. It appears that nobody on Capitol Hill is paying any attention to these marches. Obviously, if you get a big crowd in DC, somebody's going to have to cover it, whether it's The Intercept or Politico or whoever. But I really believe that if just one representative said something, that would definitely help. Why do you think there's been just this complete ghosting of what is happening this week?
Even people that have signed on to the bill.
Yeah.
Well, I asked Savage Joy Marie, why we're not inviting candidates to speak, why we're not inviting Congress people to speak. And she said that it's because of their 501c4 status. So that might be contributing to the problem.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. There are rules about those things. We know there's rules about those things.
You know what? I wish we would have known about that.
No, 501c3 status. Yeah. That they're not a 501c4.
Right.
Yeah.
They're a 501c4. So then in other words,
no, they're a 501c3. They're not a C4.
They're not a C4.
Oh, okay.
Right. So C3 is nonprofit and
so they're not allowed to be affiliated with
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think and I think that might have something to do with it. But I also think that we shouldn't underestimate efforts that might seem to go unseen, but they're not unseen by everybody. You never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. You know how the psychology of advertising works. This time it wasn't really heard. You know, somebody might be hearing us talk about Medicare for All today who hasn't really thought about it much. I know I was that way with Julian Assange. Julian Assange, it wasn't really on my radar. I just didn't have that much into it. His personality,
Right.
well, it wasn't on my landscape.
Right. It wasn't your pet project.
But I kept seeing Reality Winner's mother on social media, and I was so touched by this woman. So seeing Reality Winner's mother made me wonder what's going on with her daughter in this Texas prison who was given this 5-year prison sentence. What is this? Then I started reading about Reality Winner. You can't start reading about Reality Winner without finally getting to the real core issue here, which emerges from the Julian Assange. And then it's like, whoa, but it was a process. It's a journey. And I think so many people are in process right now. And I think people like us, Jen and Peter, all of us, sometimes you wonder, am I just speaking into the wind here? Is anybody even hearing me? But first of all, I think there's something so profound about the fact that so many of us know I'm saying it, and Jen's saying it, and Crystal's saying it, and Katie's saying it, and Carl's saying it, and Peter's saying it, and Glenn's saying it, and Matt's saying it. So first of all, there's that. And also just that you never know who might be reading a tweet, who might be watching a show. So that gives me great, great hope. I can feel we're part of a field of energy that I know is having an effect and that is going to turn into a profound, and I believe even a miraculous unfoldment in the United States, whether I get to live to see it or not, because I don't know how many years it's going to take.
I think you're right. I say it when people say, what can we do? I'm like, we're doing it. This is the revolution.
That's right. This is
the revolution. And it's really interesting, but I see it. It's almost in my mind. I can see it like this sort of spider web. And I feel like every time I have on a different person, a different part of a coalition is being built. Every connection that's made between, even if I have 2 people on and they had never been on a show together, now those are 2 different audiences that are now seeing 2 different people. So it's all just building this web. And I feel like every time I have a new person, there's like a new strand in the web, and it just makes it stronger. And that's what we try to do. That's why we try to have as many different people on as we can.
Yeah, coalition building is definitely the most important thing as far as as far as we're concerned. I mean, that's the only way, because corporate interests are unified, regardless of political stripe. If it comes down to corporate special interests, those that are benefiting from it will always line up. It is on us to really try to get away from this constant infighting that I'm sure you've noticed has been kind of festering on the independent media left, non-corporate
we
left,
don't participate in that.
I have no interest in that whatsoever. But I think it is somewhat of a hindrance in being able to really build an effective coalition. And I do think that part of that is the fact that while we may be fighting within the Democratic Party, we certainly support people who are fighting for a third party.
Yeah,
we just need to respect the fact that we are fighting for the same issues. We may just have different paths in terms of how to get there. And it seems like a lot of the fighting stems from people who are just like trying to cast people out because they may have a different philosophy.
The purity test, actually. And Lauren, Lauren Steiner, yes, Marianne?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she'd put up a question. It was just very lengthy, Lauren. So I didn't put it up there. But basically it was about all the infighting and the people going after the squad and the constant purity tests. And it's like, it's so counterproductive. But that was what her question was. But thank you, Bill.
Well, the left has long been known as a circular firing squad. But even more than that, I think we should remember the philosophy of nonviolence, the political philosophy of nonviolence as articulated by Gandhi and King. And what Gandhi said was that the end is inherent in the means. We can't be angry, hate-filled people and create a peaceful world. Yeah. You can't create what you're not. And so the process by which we do something is as important as what it is we're seeking to do, because everything we do is infused with the consciousness with which we do it. So our efforts to purify our own hearts, once again, some people call that hippy dippy. I call it Gandhi and Dr. King. Yeah, Gandhi is what Mahatma Gandhi said, is what Dr. King said, but they're not.
I agree, and I always find that interesting. I've seen the similarity when I'm explaining something to somebody where there's all this gun violence, right? And there's all this stuff going on, and people are actually like, "How can this be happening?" And I'm like, you cannot be a military empire around the world and not expect violence at home. That just doesn't work. Violence begets violence. And it's amazing to me that people don't see the connection. And it isn't even just in the logistics of we're militarizing our police force. I mean, that's part of it.
Which is a big part of it.
It is. But it's this mindset of what regard you have for life and how you value humans. And now, so there is absolutely a connection to me about what we do overseas and the fact that our people don't have health care. These things are how we value people, or how we don't value people. And they are connected. And so you can't have a violent society all around the world where you're drone bombing 8 countries and then be shocked when there's violence at home. Like, I think it's all connected.
We mentioned this earlier in the show, Lauren. Marianne, would love your opinion. You know, a lot of people like to say that Bernie hasn't done enough or that he should be doing more. If Bernie is able,
unbelievable.
If Bernie is somehow, if the senator from Vermont,
the fact that we're
somehow
talking
able
about
to
it,
convince his good friend Joe that he is able to get vision, dental, and hearing into the next reconciliation package, well, I think that's the biggest victory for Medicare.
I love that you did that.
He does Bernie, he does Trump, he does Biden, and he does Bill Clinton.
Well, you did Bernie great, so I'd love to hear the others.
He does a good Bernie. It's my favorite. When he has the mask on and he's being Bernie, I actually like him more. It's very appealing to me.
So let me show this to you for those of you who are maybe younger than 55. To someone like me, this hearing aid is what glasses might be to you.
Right.
It's no different. And for a person who needs hearing aids, without them, we couldn't work. We couldn't have the life that we could otherwise have. I don't think people
know how expensive those are, by the way, because
this was thousands of dollars.
I didn't until my mom just went and told me.
Of dollars.
Yeah.
So even when Biden said we're going to sell them over the counter, that was a big deal. So the fact that Bernie is out there fighting, the idea that anybody saying Bernie's not doing enough is so outrageous. Yeah. And what he's talking about,
he's the reason we're even having this.
That's right. The fact he's here, standing for dental, standing for eyeglasses, standing for hearing aids. Over a certain age, if you can't have eyeglasses or hearing aids, you basically really can't fully participate in society.
Right. Yeah, it's a big deal. So that is, but the idea that people, it's like they're just never happy with anything. They like to just find fault instead of recognizing that 5 years ago, we weren't regularly talking about Medicare for all. That wasn't something that we were expecting. That wasn't something we were all out. It was not. And we are because of Bernie.
Even I didn't really know enough. I mean, I thought that, hey, healthcare should be a right because others have it. And okay, so what if it is more expensive? And then because I kept hearing about it and learning about it, I learned, my goodness, it's so much cheaper to have a universal system than it is to have what we have.
I just thought we could handle it with a public option and make that transition and then make the, expand Medicare and then to Medicare.
I think as long as there's the profit people in the middle, that they're just going to ruin it for the rest of us.
Yeah. And there's no, Marianne, please.
Well, I just think that we need a massive infusion of economic hope and opportunity into the life of the average person at this point. It's too late for incrementalism on any level. It's too late for incrementalism with the climate. It's too late for incrementalism on healthcare. It's too late. So many of the things that even Biden is doing, and they're going, wow, 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 are things that the Democratic Party should have been doing 30 years ago, things that Bill Clinton should have done, things that Barack Obama should have done. And instead, they were, in many cases, part of the forces that were keeping them from being done. So at this point, anything less than, when they were talking about Nina, I heard somebody talking on one of the shows about her, and too far left. People want change too fast. Too fast. People have been suffering for decades. If a house is on fire, you can't get there too fast.
Right.
If somebody is in stage 4 cancer, you can't treat it too fast. So this dragging our feet to help men, women, and children and a planet that is in dire, 5-alarm fire, 4-alarm fire, whatever the expression is, to stand for not only bold action, but fast action. It is projected onto us. We want too much, too fast. And then it can pervert some people's personalities. I just think we have to be kind and loving and take no shit at the same time.
I agree. I agree. I have this shirt that says I'm mostly peace, love, and light, and a little go yourself. And it's a great shirt. I wear it when I do my
That's
Pilates.
great.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
really good.
that. Somebody, yeah.
But that is
Well, we're
kind of
uppity
how I feel.
women, you and I, Jen. You
Well,
and
at
I
least
are
we know,
uppity
well,
women.
at least we now know that there is somebody worth visiting the next time we find our way up in the DC area.
Oh, we had fun with Max and Anya.
We did.
Oh, absolutely. Please come visit me. Please come visit me.
Visit you.
Well, and again, speaking of, the coalition building, the last time we were up there was actually to go on Tim Pool's podcast. And you could say what you want about him, but, when 60,000 people are watching the live stream and over 500,000 people saw Jen, including people that were coming up to her when we were canvassing near Fort Lauderdale.
Young people saying, I saw you on the Tim Pool show. That was cool. And now they hear. See, that's the thing that people don't understand. What is the point of just talking to people that agree with us all the time? I don't want to talk with people that agree. That doesn't do anything for me. So I will go on any show, talk to anybody. I will have any guest if I think that it will further discourse, bring in new people, whatever it is. My message is my message. So I got a lot of hate on that. I think I got called Karen. I think I got called Karen like 3,000 times on the Tim Pool show.
And then let me tell you, people rained holy hell on her for having a relationship with Vosh. And
they hate that I like Vosh.
Marianne, Vosh loves her. I mean, he would be like he would probably be a mega fundraiser.
He's another one
her
that I don't understand why people hate him. I don't understand it.
There's just, again, everyone is very,
whatever.
They're very much about the Puritanism and this idea that, well, if this person deviates away from the way that I see the world, then that's not good enough. But the way you have to look
what
at
happened to a world where people just had an opinion?
Right.
This idea that people have now. Oh, I love how many times people will say, I'm very disappointed in you, Marianne.
Because of your opinion.
My opinion disappoints. Why should my opinion disappoint you? That's my opinion. You get to have your opinion. My opinion shouldn't disappoint you. Somebody's written books. It's shocking to see that online. I'm not used to. I'm used to the. You write a book, people buy it or they don't buy it. They like it or they don't like it. But every line you say on social media, somebody can.
Oh yes. How can you think that?
And I was canceled recently, and because I.
What did you do? I
suggested that Israel has a right to exist.
That's not happy with people right now. They're not having it, unfortunately.
No,
that's the thing.
And again, for those who don't understand,
we're not going to go there now.
We've said this a million times. There is a huge difference between supporting the Israeli people and supporting the Netanyahu or the Israeli government.
That's a whole
just like there's a huge difference between supporting the Palestinian people and Hamas. And for the people who can't critique that properly, who think that it's an all or nothing
nuance
game,
is dead.
Yes, that's true. And let's face it, that's also people who have never been to the Middle East and do not understand that there's a complete.
I just think it's complicated, and I don't.
Netanyahu is no longer prime minister.
Exactly.
I believe that there is an Israeli left. I interviewed today Merav Michaeli, who is the head of the Israeli Labor Party. I look forward to putting that podcast out. And
I'll have to check that out.
The idea of the American left, the idea that if they think the only answer is that Israel should no longer exist, which they say is that they're not saying, but then if you look at what they're actually standing for, they are. That's not going to create the changes that we need. But I think building bridges, talk about coalitions, the left in Israel and the left in the United States, there's a lot of conversation to be had there. And I hope that we can help foster that. And I look forward to helping to introduce Merav Michaeli here in the United States.
Thank you so much for coming on, Marianne. Always love to talk to you. And I'm really, is there any way, can we watch that on Saturday? I guess it'll be live. Something will be live.
I don't know how that works. You're going to be doing one in Miami, right?
No.
How could you not be having one?
Okay.
Why aren't you leading it?
Okay. First of all, contrary to popular belief on the internet,
what you say.
I am not the be all end all of all progressive politics in Florida. So in other words, everything that happens down here is not my fault.
Are you in touch with Joy Marie?
It's a very complicated story involving our local progressives and that organization, and it's a bunch of crap, and it's political crap, and it's infighting, and it's nonsense, and it makes me crazy. But there's really nothing I can do about that. And yet I'm being blamed for it because everything bad progressive in South Florida is my fault.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, one of the people who is one of the biggest outspoken proponents who kind of just lives online and talks about how bad this movement is, happens to reside down here. So of course,
it's a problem.
Basically, it's pissing and shitting in the pool is basically what you're.
We have a lot of issues.
There's not much you could do about that.
So it is what it is.
Again,
it's unfortunate.
You just have to keep. Again, I have no doubt, and I know that somebody's doing something right because both Alan Ellison and Alan Grayson are speaking at the rally in Orlando.
Okay, well,
so if 2 U.S. Senate candidates are speaking at the rally,
good.
That's a big deal.
Right. So there are events in Orlando and Tampa. South Florida, we're us. And it is what it is. And I was hoping there would be something, but yet there is not, which is why we have our outfits on for this. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I want to watch you. I'm going to see if I can. I'm sure somebody will be live streaming.
Let's come on your show at some point. That would be fun.
Well, absolutely. And in my book, you are the center of Florida progressive politics.
See, this is how I got blamed when people found out there's no thing here. I was apparently getting smeared for that. Like somehow it's my fault.
Well,
it's not.
That's and again, when it's ironic that people do feel that way about Jen because the leader, even if it's not in name of the Florida Democratic Party as it stands today, is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She does run the show.
It's behind the scenes. I mean, she's not obviously.
And if there's anybody who questions whether that's true or not,
it is.
Look no further than the person who is the chair of the state party right now, who
is a Republican.
And is only there because of Michael Bloomberg, and Michael Bloomberg and Debbie are like this.
So our Florida Democratic Party chair is a Republican.
How is that possible?
Well, he's not. He doesn't say he is anymore.
Oh, I see.
How is that possible?
Manny Diaz.
Look at the
Manny Diaz, like a lifelong Republican, his whole life, and now all of a sudden,
Miami,
as a Republican.
He's the one who thinks we're going to bomb Cuba or something.
2 statements. One statement alludes to the fact
this is our Democrat chair
that we need regime change in Cuba. That's number one. Number 2, that the progressives can F off. Like he literally said that in an op-ed today.
So that's the head of our state Democratic Party.
So as far as I'm concerned, this is like if
we're Florida.
Yeah, if you didn't know who actually said it, you would think, oh, this is probably Marco Rubio who made a statement like this. But as it turns out, it wasn't. It was actually
Debbie supports regime change too. I mean, she's come out and said that multiple
times. But as you know, Debbie is very cunning in how she operates. She's not, you could say what you want about her, but she's actually a very shrewd operator.
She's shrewd.
And so she's very often not going to be the one holding, she's not going to be the one holding the bag of money, if you will. It's going to be somebody else.
She has carriers.
Yeah, she definitely, and her power's not what it used to be, but it's just a question of when we eventually build a big enough movement where her movement doesn't last anymore. And again, as you know, it's a lot different in South Florida. It's very transient, it's a lot older, and people are conservative to a degree. But it is changing, and that's what we're trying to do. So the more we build these coalitions, the less, the closer we're going to be to ultimately not seeing her in power anymore. This would be the goal.
That's really funny.
Well, you guys just keep talking because you have magic and you have charm, as you said before.
That's what I think about you.
You're fun to listen to, and you're easy to listen to, and you're interesting to listen to. And just keep talking and know that it's never for naught because I learn from you every time I listen to you. I learned something I didn't know before.
Always.
And I always leave being around you, whether I'm on the show or I'm listening to you and I'm not on the show, I feel more encouraged.
Good.
It's so important that you're there.
I'm excited. Look, I can now put that like in my butt. Marianne Williamson feels encouraged by me. Like this is a big thing.
Well, I did when you were running for Congress, Donnie. I mean, we met then and I endorsed your candidacy. I think it's, we just, it's an assembly line, it's you might not be there when the cap is put on the ketchup bottle, but we're putting the label on the bottle.
Right. It's all part of it.
Yeah, it's all part of it. Like you said, the revolution is happening.
It is. We really hope everything goes well on Saturday.
I'm watching.
Again, March for Medicare for All, guys.
Everybody, Mary, they're all over
the United States, all over.
M4all.com.
Let me put that in the chat.
Everywhere but here.
So that's M4all.com.
Or .com,
.com.
Isn't it right? And Susan Sarandon will be in New York, and
Okay,
all kinds of great people everywhere.
Marianne, I just have to say, and Jen and I observed recently what you did for Donziger. I mean, we had Steve on the show. What you and Susan did for him is obviously, what can you say? I mean, she, as much as any successful actor in that world, has put herself out there more than anybody else, especially at her level as an Oscar winner and all that. It really speaks to, how real of a person she is as well.
She's amazing. I'm a huge fan.
Please, it freaks me out that she follows me. I'm like, Susan Sarandon follows me.
Yeah.
M4all.org. Huh? I'm sorry that I misspoke before. M4all.org. Okay.
Yes.
You're missing. Right. Yeah.
No, I got it right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Sometimes I get it right.
Sometimes you
Sometimes I get it right on the first try. And obviously this is goodbye for now, because we will be speaking with you again, Marianne, very soon. Thank you so much. And obviously again, like I said, hope everything goes well on Saturday.
Break a leg.
Yeah. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you so much, guys. Keep it up. Much love to you. Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.